Welcome to the Mobile City Planning Commission meeting for October 5th, 2023. I'd like to take a moment to review our general operating procedures. Our meeting is divided into two sessions, the public hearing session and deliberation session. In the public hearing session, the agenda item is called, the applicant makes their presentation, commission members ask questions, if any, and members of the public make their comments to the commission. Only 4 people may speak for an agenda item and 4 people against. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes, subject to questions by the commission. At a 1-minute time frame remaining, you will have a warning bell or a beep asking you to summarize your comments. After opposition speakers have finished, an applicant is allowed a 2-minute rebuttal. If you do intend to speak, come to the podium in the middle of the room, speak into the microphone, and provide your name and address for the record. Please direct all your comments to the commission only and not to the applicant, to the staff, or to the audience. After hearing all applications, we will then go into deliberation where we will discuss each application with input from the staff as necessary, but with no input from the audience. We will then vote on each application, and results of that can be learned from the planning department. If some issues arise during deliberation that were not addressed in the public hearing, we have the discretion to allow additional comments pertaining to those issues in order to resolve them or call for the application to be held over for discussion at a future meeting. Occasionally, a commissioner may recuse themselves from discussing and voting on a given application. That does not mean the member is directly involved with the application or the applicant, but depending on the circumstances, ethical rules require a recusal. If a regular member recuses, a supernumerary will vote in their stead. The Planning Commission makes final decisions on subdivisions with appeals of these to the Circuit Court. The Planning Commission is strictly a recommending body for the rezonings, conditional use permits, and planned developments. The City Council makes the final decision on these applications, and all appeals of the City Council decisions are to the Circuit Court. At this time, please turn off your cell phones or turn them to silent and any other electronic devices. Commissioners and staff, please turn on your microphones when speaking. I'll call the roll. Myself, Jay Stubbs, present. Mr. Kirk Matei. Here. Ms. Jennifer Denson. Here. Ms. Shirley Sessions. Mr. Larry Dorsey. Here. Mr. Chad Anderson. Mr. Matt Anderson. Mr. Nick Amberger. Here. Mr. Josh Woods. Here. Mr. Harry Brislin. Here. Mr. Kenny Nichols. We do have a quorum, and I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda for October 5th. Second. Properly moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Moving on to the agenda, first item on here is a new application for a subdivision at 1010 Old Shell Road, the McCleve subdivision. We do have a recusal of Mr. Kirk Matei. This is a subdivision of 2 lots, just about 1/4 of an acre. Is the applicant present? Mr. Byrd.
Jerry Byrd, Byrd Surveying, 2609 Halls Mill Road, Mobile. This subdivision comprises of 2 existing meets and bounds parcels that had an alley between, which has most recently been vacated. The majority of the alley was added to the property on the east side of it. 200 square feet was added to the lot on the west. The number 1 consideration, approval of lot size variance by the Board of Adjustment. We'd like to ask to waive that requirement in the section in the UDC concerning minimum dimensions. It won't be changing. We won't be downsizing the lot on the west. It's an increase. Then I don't see why the Planning Commission can't waive that and save the 30 days. Actually, it'd be 60 days now, because the deadline for the Board of Adjustment just went by on Tuesday. So we are asking you to waive that. The rest of the consideration for approval, we're okay with.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. So of the 11 conditions, we're looking at number 1 only. Question for staff. Does that present a problem
Well, it's not a section of the UDC that Mr. Byrd was actually wanting you to waive. It's Section 6C2A1 of the subdivision regulations, which the Planning Commission can waive. The Planning Commission cannot waive the UDC because that's zoning that would require Board of Adjustment. So it's Section 6.C.2.A1 of the subdivision regulations. And that would relieve him of the variance requirement.
And again, Mr. Byrd, just for our knowledge, restate your primary objective on the waiver of that specific zone requirement. You're not expecting the size of the lot to change.
No, we are increasing that lot.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll explain.
With the
The UDC has a minimum lot size area for R1 urban zoning of 6,000 square feet. And so this subdivision is creating a Lot A that will be 4,253 square feet, but it is primarily an existing parcel that's just being slightly expanded due to the vacation of the alley. So by waiving the subdivision regulation requirement, that will relieve Mr. Byrd's client from the variance requirement.
Understood. Any questions or comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, this is an issue that we dealt with on council, and Councilman Member Carroll was very big advocate for making sure this happens. And this is one of those weird, to other commissioners, one of those weird little things where apparently back in 1800, some odd years, they created an alley that was never really claimed. And that's just really what this is kind of just splitting that alley up and properly putting it somewhere. So this is a big, Mr. Carroll was a big advocate for this, and the council approved that unanimously.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? All right, is there anyone else here to speak for this agenda item at 1010 Old Shell Road? Is anyone here to speak against this agenda item? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 2, 1109, 1111, 1113 West I-65 Service Road North, the Harris subdivision. It's my understanding from staff that this will be recommended for holdover. Do we have a date for the recommendation of the holdover?
I think the date would be subject to their ability to get the modification application in to staff.
Is the applicant present?
It would appear not. Logan was stating that if they could get the modification application tomorrow, it could be placed on the November 2nd agenda at the earliest. And so we could set it for that date, and if they don't get it in, we can postpone it to another one.
End of business tomorrow? Okay. All right, since it's on the agenda, anyone else here to speak for agenda item number 2, West I-65 Service Road? Anyone here to speak against this agenda item? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to number 3, the northeast corner of Solly Road and Falling Leaf Avenue. This is a sidewalk waiver. Is the applicant present? Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Vince Lacoste, Bethel Engineering, 4103 Ridgelawn Drive. So basically, this is a subdivision that's existed for approximately 15 years, and kind of sad. And recently, Horton purchased not all of, but the majority of the remaining lots, and started construction, and then it became aware that there was on the plat showing a sidewalk on Solly Road. And so this started a process of talking about a waiver, and we met with city engineering staff and walked the entire length of this section. And there's a lot of very steep grades that come up from this open ditch section. It's not curb and gutter, it is a open ditch section and steep grades. And then at kind of the top of the hill near the right-of-way line, it then goes down the other direction steep towards towards where the houses are being constructed. And all along that area, there's large trees, and adjacent to those large trees, there's buried fiber optics. It would just be a very major ordeal to put a sidewalk in, and I would be concerned about safety issues with, if we put it close to the road, it's an open ditch section, so that would be a concern. If we put it at the back of the right-of-way, we're dealing with really, really steep grades and potential impacts to utilities. And so for those reasons, we are requesting a waiver of sidewalk. There's the only portion of sidewalk that currently exists on Solly Road is right there at Oak Park Church, which is to the south of us. But other than that, I'm here to answer any questions you guys may have.
This is a question for staff. On the map that we're looking at in our report, is the church he referenced, Mr. Lacoste referenced, is that the immediate building south?
Yes, immediately to the south is the only location of a sidewalk on Solid Road between, I believe, Cottage Hill and Three Notch. And they, I believe, enclosed their ditch so that they don't have an open ditch section, so that facilitated their providing a sidewalk. A waiver was granted, though, for the south portion of their site along Solly Road where they have their detention facility. And then I should also point out that about 1,000 feet to the north of this site, where the Charleston Oaks, I believe, apartments are located, they also did receive a sidewalk waiver.
All right, very helpful. Any questions? Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I'll add, I walked the site with Mr. Lacoste, and his comments are very accurate. It's a place where it's not probably appropriate for a sidewalk to be built there now today. If a sidewalk were going to be built along Solly Road, it would probably need to take in all the neighborhoods along that corridor and done with a much, much bigger project. There are a lot of big utilities in the corridor. And in fact, even the cross sections that we look at really don't do the topography justice. Even at some future point, if sidewalks are going to be constructed along there would probably be encroachments into private property lots that were already sold. So it's just, my recommendation would be to approve the waiver.
Any other questions or comments from staff?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So I walked it as well, took time, and I'll tell you, sitting as the city council member for District 6, about every 2 weeks I get a burst of calls from the people down Solly Road, asking when the city's going to put sidewalks in. So I'm normally not in favor of sidewalk waivers. You know, the city council, not only do I have to answer to the people in District 6, but also the people on the ninth floor that made that did the code. I just would say I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote to waive this, given the circumstances and the the various grades and also the fiber optic but I just would caution your client that and I've told your client this, that I'm not in favor of waiving sidewalks. So definitely, if you will, just take back that that's going to be a consideration moving forward for any development out in District 6.
Yes, thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak for this agenda item? Anyone else here to speak against it? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, another sidewalk waiver. Number 4, 4215 McKinnon Industrial Parkway, request to waive construction of sidewalks along McKinnon Industrial Parkway and Riviere du Chêne Road. Is the applicant present? Mr. Byrd?
Jerry Byrd again. Yes, we're asking for a waiver on McKinnon Industrial and Riviere du Chêne. On McKinnon Industrial, in the staff report, there are cross sections we submitted that shows the drop from the pavement down into the ditch located where you would normally build a city sidewalk. Starting at the edge of the pavement, if you go out about 2 feet, then it starts to roll down into the ditch. There have been sidewalk waivers on the north side for the same ditch. Well, not the same ditch, the compromising ditch on the other side. And feel like that same conditions apply on the south side of McKinnon. On Riviera des Chênes, as soon as you turn off of Halls Mill Road and pass McKinnon, that starts the ramp up and over the interstate, reaching a height of like 13 feet above the ground elevation at the property line. We don't feel like a sidewalk there would really accomplish anything. But your consideration on these would be appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Comments from staff, excuse me, commissioners? Seeing none, is anyone else here to speak for this agenda item? Anyone here to speak against this sidewalk waiver at McKinnon Industrial Parkway and Riviera des Chênes? All right, we'll move on to number 5. It's a combination application, a subdivision, and a rezone. This is 2660 and 2662 Spring Hill Avenue and 266 Mobile Street, the RS Mobile subdivision. Subdivision of 2 lots at 3 1/3 acres and rezoning from single-family residential urban, or R1, and community business urban B3 to community business urban B3. There are 15 listed conditions for the subdivision, and there are 3 listed recommendation considerations for the rezone. Is the applicant present?
I'm Trevor McGill. I'm the applicant here. Our goal is to subdivide this into 1.33 acres and match the current zoning for about 18,000 square feet from R1 to B3 for a convenience store development here. And we just think that it's a great intersection to get this done.
On the subdivision, are you in agreement with the 15 listed conditions?
Yes, sir.
On the rezone, are you in agreement with the 3 listed suggestions?
Yes, sir.
Any questions from commissioners towards the applicant? Is there anyone else here to speak for this agenda item? Anyone here to speak against this agenda item?
Mr. Chairman, you do have some comments that were submitted online
Oh,
via
thank you.
email, and they are actually on the iPad under your comments.
Thank you for the reminder on that. All right, we've got those in our file folder here. I will ask again if there's anyone here to speak against this application. Yes, ma'am. Your name and address for the record.
My name is Pamela Gaines. I live at 266 Del Barco Drive, Mobile, Alabama 36607.
Yes, ma'am.
I submitted my comments online. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read them. I don't know that you would want me to read those brief comments to you. They are very important to the residents of the nearby residential streets, to these applications, and to the proposed development. Mr. Stubbs, would you want to give me?
Well, you've got the podium, yes, ma'am. So you have a 4-minute period and then a summary of 1 minute.
Okay.
We're already 1 minute into that, but if you'd like to summarize your comments from what you've written here, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm the homeowner of the property at 266 Del Barco. Rezoning and re-subdividing of the properties that are located at 260 and 2660 and 2662, as well as 266 Mobile Street, will result to my understanding of a development of a Murphy Oil convenience store and gas station if the aforementioned applications are approved. Our neighborhood that would adjoin this proposed development was built in the very early 1950s. My house that I live in was built in 1952. My house and I were born the same year. Our property's only egress and ingress off of Spring Hill Avenue, is Spring Hill Avenue, because our little street is a dead-end street. The entrance to our street is approximately, and I just jogged it off, is about 225 feet from the intersection of Mobile and Mobile Streets in Spring Hill. At peak traffic times during the work week, we really have to depend on the very kindness of our fellow drivers to let us in and out of our street. And to be quite frank, I really rarely have a problem at all getting in and out. I may sit there for a little while, but almost every time somebody's kind enough to let us out, but it can be very difficult to get in and out. Now, there is a do not block intersection sign there that it does help us get in and out. I think people do pay attention to that. If the pending applications are approved and the convenience stores built, the egress and ingress to Del Barco may become quite impossible. The Murphy Oil development, if it's built, would be the third convenience store at the intersection of Spring Hill and Mobile Streets. Responsible city planning, in my opinion, for any city would frown on 3 convenience stores at any one intersection. To sum up the objections to these pending applications, there'll be a more cluttering and clogging of an already highly congested urban intersection with 2 already existing convenience stores. Building a third convenience store that adjoins the existing residential street that's been inhabited for 70+ years will seriously affect the quality of life of the people who live here, increasing traffic noise, light pollution, and littering along Spring Hill Avenue, which is is as much of a gateway into our city as Broad Street, making it increasingly impossible to move in and out of our residential street possibly. That was my time.
Just to summarize.
Okay. The owners of the streets that are mentioned here, Highland, Santa Vista, Park Avenue, Wingfield, Del Barco, we'd like to ask the Planning Commission to reject both applications for re-subdivision and rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gaines. Is there anyone else here to speak against this agenda item?
I did include some pictures. I don't know if you guys.
Yes, ma'am. They're in the file.
Okay, and I for some reason I explained all of them. If you have any questions without knowing what they are, I don't know if you might want to ask me what the heck I made pictures of, but feel free if you want to ask me questions about those attached pictures, let me know.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I will give these commissioners a chance to look at those pictures in the file. And I'll re-ask the question, is there anyone else here to speak against this agenda item?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Butch Ladner, Traffic Engineering. I just wanted to point out that Spring Hill Avenue is a state highway. You'll need to get ALDOT authorization for anything, driveways that you put on that location. And the City Mobile Traffic Engineering Department would like a traffic impact study for this site. And that's the only comment I have.
You said you would like
Yes,
a traffic, okay.
traffic impact study.
Question for staff, is that listed here as part of the conditions?
No, they are not listed in the conditions.
But they are listed, and well, I guess it's listed as compliance with traffic engineering on the rezone, but it's not listed as a condition for the subdivision.
Well, and the comments that were put into the staff report for traffic engineering did not include a TIS requirement.
Okay, so that would need to be included.
If you wish to include it, yes.
Understood. Since the applicant's present, are you aware of that, what traffic just brought up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions on that?
No, sir.
All right. Any questions or comments from commissioners after you've had a chance to review the opposition pictures? That's yes. Do you have questions, or no, we're all good? Okay, yeah.
I've been looking at the notes from the meeting. There's a reference in here that overall the neighbors who attended seemed to be in favor of the project. Is that the applicant? And is
Yeah,
there-
when we had the neighborhood meeting, the vibe that I had picked up, it didn't seem like anybody had that many problems, and besides the traffic off of Del Barco, which we had brought up in the comments on the meeting agenda.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So the comments, I guess, that receiving from my fellow council member, it does revolve around that traffic congesting up the neighborhood, and also just the existing traffic as it is. So I guess looking at to your point, looking at the traffic study, that would give us a better idea of what the real issue is. You and I know we drive down Spring Hill, but we don't know how to count cars.
Yeah, a thorough traffic impact study would give you an idea about any delays or trip generation that you could expect and how the overall congestion might be increased. And they also recommend solutions.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, we might want to ask Mr. Ladner to let us know when the TIS needs to be completed, if it needs to be completed prior to application to the city council for final rezoning, or just prior to development, or as part of the development permit process.
Well, I guess the sooner the better for development, if we get that first, so that, other studies or steps.
So the condition could be a submittal of a TIS to traffic engineering prior to forwarding of the rezoning request to city council.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
I think the best thing to do, the TIS before the final vote,
Understood.
y'all can pass it subject to.
All right, seeing as y'all have had that conversation down there in the middle of the room, Mr. McGill, thumbs up on that. Thank you, traffic. I don't know, would we recommend when we get to it, would we look for a holdover date at some point in the future, or we just put it as pending?
Y'all can approve it, and that condition,
Okay, that's what we'll do then. Unless there's any other questions or comments from commissioners during deliberation.
So would we approve based on the 15 plus adding the requirement of traffic impact study?
Yes.
Based on that? Okay, got it.
All right, we put number 5 to rest on the agenda item. Thank you, Mr. McGill. Moving on to number 6 on the agenda. It's a combination application subdivision and 2 modifications at 951 Downtowner Boulevard and 3655 Marion Beckham Drive, the McGill-Tulin Athletic Complex West subdivision. There are 11 listed conditions for the subdivision, and then 7 listed recommendation notes for one of the modifications, and then 7 for the other modification. The applicant's present. Mr. Byrd.
Yes. Yeah, this is the old YMCA property. We are just separating out the vacant playing fields from all of the building and improvements. Not a problem, except number 1 and number 2 considerations. We would request not to dedicate additional right-of-way on Michael Boulevard and Marion Beckham due to the subdivision plat that we are working with, which was approved by the Planning Commission, did not require dedication at that time, and would like to leave it at the 80-foot right-of-way and 50-foot right-of-way on Marion Beckham. Marion Beckham certainly is a short street, not many businesses in there.
So to confirm, on Michael, the section to the south is currently 80. Notes and the conditions go to 50, and you're asking for it to stay at 80.
80 and 50, yes.
But then on Marion Beckham, which goes into the athletic property with the football parking on the right, or the general parking and main football parking on the right, and then goes up along those fields on the left, you're asking for that to remain at 50, and the condition is at 30.
That's correct.
All right.
Other than that, we're okay.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Is there anyone else here to speak for this application? Is there anyone here to speak against this application? All right. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing session. Please note that we do have other business for the future land use map to come after the deliberation session of each of the agenda items. We'll go back to number 1 on the agenda item. Mr. Matei is recused. Subdivision of 1010 Old Shell Road of 2 lots. The applicant is present. There was discussion about specific to the alleyway, specifically referencing 6.c-2.a.1. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve subject to staff recommendations with a waiver of 6.c.2.a.1.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Before you vote, also note that a waiver of 6C to 3, as noted in the first part on the agenda there, would also be required for a separate issue.
I'll amend my motion to include that.
Motion's been amended to include the reference to 6C23.
Second.
The amended motion has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Mr. Matei, you can return. Agenda item number 2, 1109, 1111, and 1113 West I-65 Service Road North. Been recommended for holdover to the November 2nd meeting if the applicant can get the modification of the application in before close of business tomorrow, Friday, October 6th.
So moved.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Number 3, sidewalk waiver at the northeast corner of Solly Road and Falling Leaf Avenue. The applicant is present, stated his case. Comments from commissioners were appropriate. Entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve the waiver.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion to approve the sidewalk waiver passes. Number 4, another sidewalk waiver at 4215 McKinnon Industrial Parkway. This was a waiver for sidewalks along McKinnon as well as Riviere Duchesne. The applicant is present and stated his case. We do not have any questions or comments from commissioners. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve the waiver.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion for the sidewalk waiver passes. Number 5, 2660 and 2662 Spring Hill Avenue and 266 Mobile Street. This is a combination application with a subdivision as well as a rezone. We'll take them separately. We did have comments from the applicant in agreement with all 15 noted conditions. We did have comments from traffic requesting a TIS, traffic engineering study. So we'll take these separately on the subdivision. And we did have comments from Ms. Gaines, as noted in your files, as well as her in person. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve the subdivision subject to staff recommendations and, subject to the requiring a traffic impact study.
Second.
Prior to the city council.
Yes.
That's all. Well, the TI.
We were doing,
Do it on,
I think we're doing on both.
okay.
Well, the issue is if we put it on the rezoning conditions, then it becomes part of the ordinance.
Repeat that.
If we include the TIS requirement on the rezoning conditions, then the ordinance that gets created for the city council to adopt would include that as a condition.
So should it just be on the zoning and not on the subdivision?
One is on the rezoning, that's sufficient.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion, just move to approve the subdivision subject to staff recommendations.
On the 15 listed conditions.
Yeah, on the 15 listed conditions, yes.
Any discussion on the subdivision?
I just do have one comment. This came to me looking at the rezone application, I'm sorry, the subdivision application. The site plan shows, and I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. The site plan that was on the application shows this, the gas station, convenience store, on that southern side, and I'm trying to find it now. Here we go. The line, I'm looking at.
It's under,
Yeah,
rezoning.
Yeah, well, it's this site plan, and I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page of where these lines are going. There's a proposed lot line 92 feet north of the subdivision, and this is on the site plan the applicant submitted.
Mr. Matei, on the, behind Mr. Stubbs there, so they're essentially moving the lot line from here north to here to accommodate the proposed development, and the site plan essentially is showing the existing lot line and where it's being moved to, and that's the additional area that they're rezoning to B3 as well.
Okay, so the two existing structures will be removed.
Yes, the existing structure will be removed, and this will be a new development.
Okay, all right, making sure I had my lines right. I think I'm on the same page now. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from commissioners? Entertain a motion on the subdivision.
We had a motion from Mr.
Motion
Amberger.
subdivision.
Oh, thank you. Do we have a second? Properly moved and seconded on the subdivision. Any discussion? All in favor for the subdivision?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion for the subdivision passes. The zoning has 3 listed comments, and then we were adding traffic impact study. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve subject to staff recommendations, subject to the conditions of the staff recommendations and the requirement of a traffic impact study.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion for the rezone passes. Again, that will have some further work to do there. Number 6 on the agenda item, combination subdivision and 2 modifications. Applicant is present, Mr. Byrd. specifically reference conditions of the subdivision on setbacks on Michael Boulevard and setbacks on Marion Beckham Road.
Nick, on the Marion Beckham Road, that is currently a two-lane road, correct? It's got 50 feet currently for the right-of-way. How many lanes can a 50-foot right-of-way hold?
Just two out there, there's big deep ditches on one side got a big deep ditch, the other side I think has been piped. A question I wish I had asked it earlier, were the 50 and the 30 respectively just getting it up to the standard street widths? Was that what the intent of the?
Well, those are dedications from Centerline. So under the Major Street Plan, Michael Boulevard at this location is supposed to have a 100-foot wide right-of-way. But as noted in the staff report and by Mr. Byrd, previous subdivisions of this property did not require dedication of right-of-way on Michael Boulevard. For Marion Beckham, the thought was to get it to a total of a 60-foot wide right-of-way, of which 30 feet would be from this side of the street.
What is the balance of Marion Beckham?
Well, I think there's an existing 50-foot right-of-way, so to provide 30 feet from Centerline, that would be an additional 5 feet, I believe, from this property. But I believe if the stadium site has already been through the subdivision process and we didn't require dedication at that point, then it would be a long time before we would get that additional right-of-way from the McGill side.
So Mr. Bird's request was basically just to stricken 1 and 2.
That's correct.
If it was 60, that could encompass 3 lanes?
So you can squeeze it in there if it's curb and gutter, but it just depends, how deep the ditches are. And that's one side that I know is the stadium side has been piped. I believe the west side of Marion Beckham, I believe that's open ditch in part of it.
If your kid ever plays soccer there, you know.
My only thought was that road was built when I started. It was there when I started playing Little League Baseball there 58 years ago, and this place has grown so much. Now it's including the Chandler YMCA building. It looks like Beckham Drive. You can go on Beckham Drive all the way through to downtown Boulevard, and with as much attendance as they have at those events, I was just concerned if there's a need in the future for widening, is that 50 feet going to be enough?
It is narrowed by desired standards, there's no doubt about that.
Just a thought. Not a legal opinion, just a thought.
Well, I would say, though, I think if we were to pursue a widening project on that, it would probably be requested by those same entities. So, yeah, I think they would be probably inclined to donate the right of way if the city were to consider a widening project there.
Other than that, the applicant is present and in agreement. We'll take them separately on the subdivision. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve subject to staff conditions, striking comments 1 and 2.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion for the subdivision passes. We have 2 PUDs. We'll take those separately. First one, to remove Lot 1 from the development. Is that correct?
Yes, the first one is a PUD to remove Lot 1 from the development, since that's the open field portion. And then the second item is a planning approval.
Got it. So we're first on the first modification. Entertain a motion. We do need to adopt some findings of fact.
Those comments.
Those would be found actually in your staff report.
Yep.
Prior to the comments.
Getting there. Got to scroll.
You can use the page images on the left side of your document, I believe, to go to specific pages within if they're showing up. A.
A, B, C, and D. I'm looking.
A through H. Apparently you have a considerations agenda that should have it listed on there.
For the modification, we have 7 different conditions, or 7 conditions.
And then the criteria would be A through H. Let me briefly read it to you here. The request is consistent with all applicable requirements of the chapter. It's compatible with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. It will not impede the orderly development and improvement of surrounding property. It will not adversely affect health, safety, or welfare of persons living or working in the surrounding neighborhood, or be more injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood. It will minimize traffic hazards and traffic congestions on public roads. They're not noxious or offensive by any reason of emissions, vibration, noise, odors, dust, smoke, or gas. The request shall not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare, and the request will be in the city's and the larger community's best interests.
It's 1 through 8 on page 6.
Mhm.
It's numbered instead of lettered.
Would you like to entertain, or like to amend the motion to include findings of fact A 1 through 8 on the agenda, or A through H?
You make that
There we go. Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion for the first modification passes. Second modification for the planning approval. Entertain a motion. I'm waiting on a motion for the second modification.
Question, Chuck, are we gonna need findings of facts on this one as well?
Yes, you will need the criteria. Yes.
Will be the same findings of facts as the A through H?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve, with findings of facts A through H.
I'll second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion for the second modification of planning approval passes. That concludes the agenda portion of our meeting. We do have other business. I'll turn it over to staff.
Okay, so before you now is our proposed amendments to the future land use map and the major street plan. The amendments are required due to the annexation that occurred. The vote was on July 18th, 2023, and then the vote was certified by the City Council on the July 25th meeting. 3 areas were annexed into the city: Kings Branch, which is north of Moffett Road; Orchard Estates, which is along Schillinger's Road; and then the Cottage Hill Corridor, which is south of Airport Boulevard and encompasses Cody Road and Schillinger's Road. Now, we do have large maps over here on the side if you also want to look at those. But the future land use map that we're considering is not zoning. And zoning will be considered at a future time by the Planning Commission after the future land use map process has been completed. Right now, all of the annexed areas are assigned an R1 single-family residential zoning classification. And now the computer has frozen.
In front of the commissioners, there are several comments.
Right.
Yep.
We did receive comments via email and online, and they are pertaining to 2 different properties. One property is located near the intersection of Leroy Stevens and Cottage Hill Road, and then the other property is located near the intersection of Cottage Hill Road and Cody Road. So they're both in the Cottage Hill area. And I believe there will be people here to speak regarding those 2 properties in a moment. So the future land use map and the major street plan are part of the map for Mobile Comprehensive Plan. The comp plan was adopted in 2015 by the Planning Commission, and then the future land use map and the major street plan were adopted by the Planning Commission in 2017. So these proposed amendments would amend the existing documents to include the new annexed area. The future land use map is just a recommendation that can be considered when zoning applications come before the Planning Commission. It is not a legally binding mandate, it's just a recommendation. The major street plan, however, is in order for the city to be in coordination with the Metropolitan Planning Organization as it relates to getting local, state, and federal highway funds. The diagram that's before you or behind you on the PowerPoint show just shows that the future land use map and the major street plan are here on the top part of the planning tree, the highest level of the planning tree. As you go down, you get into the nitty-gritty of zoning ordinances and subdivision regulations, for example. This is, again, just an overview map showing the three areas that were annexed. You have the Kings Branch, Orchard Estates, and then Cottage Hill Corridor. This is the Kings Branch area. Essentially what we're proposing is that the bulk of the area be low-density residential land use designation with some mixed commercial corridor here along Moffett Road where there are primarily existing businesses. For the Orchard Estates, in this area, you have the headquarters for the Mobile County Public School System here at the old QMS site. Mobile County Public Works has a very large facility, and then of course the public school has some bus storage as well as portable building storage here, plus other various commercial uses in the area. So the bulk of the area is proposed to be mixed commercial corridor or light industrial for land use, not zoning. And then we are proposing R1 single or low density residential here with a little bit of mixed density for an existing mobile home development. The Cottage Hill corridor is the largest area. We're proposing some large commercial areas to continue the Schillinger Road corridor beginning at the Abbott Temple heading south. And then further down it's Schillinger and Cottage Hill Road. This would be a suburban center, which is a relatively intense versus mixed commercial corridor here at Cottage Hill and Cody. This is the major street plan. This is the Kings Branch area, and we're proposing to extend the designation of Moffett Road through the area as a principal arterial. And then Jarrett Road here on the east side is proposed as a major collector, and that's on the boundary with the city of Pritchard. Orchard Estates, again, Schillinger's Road here would be continued as a principal arterial, and Howell's Ferry from the old city limit through the Orchard Estate sites is a minor arterial. And then finally, for the Cottage Hill corridor, Schillinger's Road again is a principal arterial, and the blue streets here would represent minor arterials, and then we have a major collector here for Jeff Hamilton from the roundabout heading west. So the next steps would be that anyone here to speak regarding the flume have the opportunity, of course. Once the commission has considered everything, you would need to adopt the proposed future land use map as well as the major street plan. Once that's done, at some point in the future, staff will request that the Planning Commission have a call for public hearing for a zoning study for these three areas, at which time there would then be a public hearing, and then that would go to the City Council for final consideration for any rezoning changes.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here to speak towards the future land use map We'll note that, Commissioners, you have in front of you comments from regarding the Cottage Hill corridor, specifically at 2316 Leroy Stevens Road, requesting to show this property as mixed density residential or mixed commercial residential. Under the current flume, it is listed as low density residential. So we have that comment, and then a second one from
The Loper and Cameron
yeah,
families.
from the Loper. This the third page on your. It's a request to go from low density residential to mixed commercial corridor at the intersection of Cody Road and Cottage Hill. But again, I'll ask, is there anyone in the audience to speak towards or make comments towards this? Yes, sir.
My name is Coleman Loper, and my address is 6010 Riverwood Drive, Atlanta, Georgia, 30328. Just by way of background and reference, my three brothers and I own two parcels, which are there on the corner of Cody and Cottage Hill Road. It's somewhere between 18 and 19 acres. And I appreciate the opportunity to give you our point of view on this, and why we think it should be designated in the future land use map as mixed commercial corridor. By way of background, my dad purchased that land in 1979, and I actually had some of the material at the time from the real estate broker that handled it, and it was characterized then as commercial property. It was my understanding that he intended to build a gas station, a convenience store, and even a bulk plant on that corner, but he wasn't ever able to do it. Through a trust, he gave that property to myself and my three brothers. I have handled all of the communication on that property for the last 30 plus years, and we've probably received somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 inquiries, letters of intent, phone calls. Every single one of those has been for commercial use. Not one of them has been for residential. We currently have it listed as commercial real estate for sale. And we did discuss with our real estate broker, who's actually here today, Brent Cumbus, what would be the highest and best use for that property to sell it. And his conclusion, as was ours, was to list it as commercial real estate. Last thing I would mention is I think due to the specific location of that property, as well as the acreage, it really does stand, if it's developed in the right way, which I think it could, to be of great benefit to that community as a commercial development. As you mentioned, or as was said, my brother did send an email to the commission on our behalf. Some of the things that I've mentioned are included in that, some of them were not, but I would want to take some of my 5 minutes to answer any questions that you might have about anything that I've said, or anything that was in that communication that we sent. I think it was on September the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Loper. I'll give the commissioners a chance to review your notes. And again, the suggestion is to take this from low density residential at the intersection of Cottage Hill and Cody to mixed commercial
Corridor for both the parcels. There are two parcels included.
Yeah.
In this.
Can you it's clearly identified on ours. I don't know if you need to bring it up for the or zoom in. I don't know if you can do that. We're speaking towards this one right here, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
Just a question for staff. I mean, just again for clarity, I think you said it earlier, the flume is just recommendation. So, the property, even if it shows up on the flume, if somebody wants to come in and do something from on a commercial standpoint, they would have to come back and have the zoning change back through the city council.
Well, as I said, right now, the zoning for the entire three annexed areas is R1 single-family residential. Once the planning commission has gone through a rezoning study, and once the city council has adopted a rezoning study, if the rezoning that they want doesn't go through that process, then they will have to themselves go through the rezoning process as outlined in the UDC.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Mr. Loper? And again, he's here in person for his specific suggestion, and then there's another suggestion on the first part of your packet. Is there anyone here to speak towards that? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for making the trip. So as I understand it, question for staff, we have two procedures in front of us. The first would be to adopt a flume today, and the second would be to adopt the major street plan.
That's correct.
If we go through that adoption and this commission is in agreement with the suggestion of the those that were here in person and those that submitted in writing, do we include that as an amendment to the flume?
Yes, you would need to amend the proposed flume to include those recommendations. And I believe someone from Helmstein Law may be present. She has no comments.
Just listening in.
Yes. So if you do wish to make those changes, you would need to make the amendment, vote on that, and then vote on the overall future land use map and major street plan.
All right, point of reference for the commissioners. This would be and do you want to bring up 2316 Leroy Stevens Road just to say that
Yes,
I mean, we've got it on our sheets, but
Right.
for the sake of the meeting, I think it's appropriate to show that.
So this is the site in question on Leroy Stevens Road. It's currently developed with a single-family residence, and the proposal that is mentioned in the comments received is that plans are in the works and over 50% complete to redevelop that site. And the development they're proposing, they don't believe would be suitable as a low-density residential. So they're proposing either mixed-density residential, which would be similar to diagonally across the street here, where you have an apartment complex, or mixed commercial corridor, which would be separated by other residential development.
And we would need to make a decision on which.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, so we'll take them separately. Commissioners, entertain a motion for the adoption of the future land use map in consideration the two properties listed.
Motion to adopt the flume with 2316 Leroy Stevens changing from low-density residential to mixed-density residential.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? So do we know also, are we looking at
Do we need to do the
Yeah,
Loper property the same? Okay, amending that.
taking them separately? So we'll do the first one for that specific property at 2316. Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes for the flume for 2316 to go from low-density residential to mixed-density residential. Entertain a motion for the second suggestion.
Motion to accept the flume with the amendment for the Loper Cameron property, requesting change from low-density residential to mixed commercial corridor.
Second.
That's low-density residential to mixed commercial corridor for the Loper Cameron property. Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion for that amendment on the flume passes. Do we need to do the flume in its entirety?
Yes, sir.
Entertain a motion.
Motion to adopt the flume as presented.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion for the flume passes. Second procedure will be the adoption of the major street plan. We can get Mr. Matei back. from staff, were there any, unless they were addressed today, were there any specific major street plan notes or suggestions?
Well, we didn't receive any comments from the public, and before we presented this to you, we did reach out to county engineering to make sure that what we were proposing was in line to what they had prior to its being annexed, as well as reaching out to city engineering and traffic engineering to make sure that they were okay with the proposal, and they all seemed okay.
Entertain a motion to adopt the major street plan. Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion to adopt the major street plan passes. We have a resolution. I'll go ahead and go through this, and then we will execute the resolution up here at the table. Whereas the Mobile City Planning Commission adopted the Map for Mobile Framework for Growth, a new comprehensive plan for the city of Mobile by resolution dated November 5th, 2015. And whereas the future land use plan, future land use map, major street plan, and major street plan map were adopted as components of the Map for Mobile Framework for Growth, that resolution dated May 18th, 2017. And whereas the annexation of Kings Branch, Orchard Estates, and Cottage Hill Corridor areas into the city in July of 2023 necessitate an update of the future land use plan, future land use map, major street plan, and major street plan map components of the Map of Mobile Framework for Growth. And whereas the Mobile City Planning Commission has now reviewed the proposed updates to the future land use plan, map, street plan, and street plan map components for the Map of Mobile Framework for Growth. Whereas the City of Mobile Planning Commission has conducted a public hearing on the proposed updates. Now therefore be it resolved that the Mobile City Planning Commission does hereby approve the proposed updates and amends the map for Mobile to incorporate the updates to the future land use plan, future land use map, major street plan, and major street plan map components as presented this date, October 5th, 2023, into the map for Mobile. I will sign as chairman, and we'll get Ms. Jennifer Denson to execute that as a test. Any further comments from staff?
Yes, sir. Just to let you know that at the next meeting, October 19th, we'll be having a presentation for the Tomanville Neighborhood Plan. I will be sending you a link to the document, which is available on our website, Map for Mobile website. That will be a presentation that will include Councilman Penn, and you will need to vote on that as an amendment to the Map for Mobile.
Thank you very much. Any further comments? Meeting adjourned.